all right. Welcome to the Hellion Rocks. You know, we hear all kinds of cool new bands that, should be getting some radio play, but corporate radio just either they're afraid or they just, I don't know what the deal is, but we bring them to you, and we're not afraid. I heard of a band recently, and I got to say the name struck me, and we're going to talk to Pat Harrington of Gaggle of COCKS today. Dude, what's happening?
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. You know, I got to say, first off, right out the gate, we got to talk about that name, dude. What's up with that?
It just kind of happened when it happened, and we're talking, the band started back in, I guess officially it would have been 2000. So, it became almost a badge of honor because when it came up in the conversations, it was almost how could you turn it down? But I've been regretting it ever since.
No, man, it's unique. You know, it strikes people. Once you hear it, you can't ignore it. You know, it's definitely a name that people are like, what? What did he just say?
Yeah, without a doubt. It definitely grabs people's attention. The question that I can't really answer too clearly, however, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because sometimes it just gives people, preconceived notions. So it's kind of a hard thing to live up to, whether from whatever angle you want to approach it. You know what I mean?
You know, absolutely. But, like they say, I count it amongst the lines of, there's no good press or bad press, there's just press, you know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, certainly, man.
It was definitely...
It was meant to be tongue-in-cheek from the beginning, and it has been that and more.
But you hear it, and you're going to stop and listen, It's got that, what is this about? I got to check it out. It really, that's what caught my attention about it. I was like, what? So,
what
does
that sound like?
Right. And, I got a hard copy of the CD in the mail. I put on the first track. I felt dirty right away, dude. I'm just saying.
That's the good news.
It's the music's got that, dirty, sleazy down rock and roll that that we all know and love. And I'm glad to hear that there's bands like Gaggle of COCKS out there still making that kind of good music. What was your musical influences, man? Where did Gaggle of COCKS get their vibe from?
Well, again, when we started, it was we were, I guess, late 90s, early 2000s, and from where we were at, it just, I don't know, Freddie, the bass player, and I, we met at work and just started, I had some song ideas laying around, and so I was just playing guitar one day, and he heard a riff that I was banging on, and was like, what's going on there? And I think that, there was kind of a point of view that we were going after, and it was really just straight ahead. As far as musically, it was about, being groovy. It was about, being heavy, but, more from like a rock standpoint as opposed to a metal standpoint, where, where instead of necessarily about banging your head or whatever, it's more about, feeling the shit kind of move you from inside. And then lyrically, I was at a pretty weird place, I guess you could say at that time. So the perspective of all the lyrics kind of came from, a place of anger, a place of, it's more about pointing out the hypocrisy about whatever we saw around us. And that's kind of like what the whole thing is, double meanings, everything. There are two faces to everything. There are two sides, and they're usually all bullshit. So we just kind of use those ideas as a springboard to what later became, I guess the sound or the vibe that we worked with. And Again, musically, I was into like the Melvin back then a lot. I really dug what Helmet used to do with space, with their riffs and their grooves, where the silence is almost as deafening as the guitars themselves, and so I tapped into a lot of that kind of stuff. And again, it was more, from that Sabbath kind of classic rock vibe as opposed to, Metallica or the other shit that I grew up on. So it became a point of view, and we stuck with it.
Nice, man. I'm glad to see that bands like yourself are reaching down within and not trying to ride the trend, which a lot of bands tend to do. And I think that in doing that, you keep true to your art. When the band tries to emulate the band they like, which is a cool thing to do. You pay props to and give honor to, but at the same time, you don't want to sound just like them, because then what's the point?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, I'm a rugged individualist when it comes to music, that's for sure.
And that's something that I think that more people need to get in touch, more musicians need to get back in touch with who they are inside and what the art form that they're trying to express is, and by doing so, it'll help them achieve what they're trying to reach out and do, instead of, the same old, which is what we got now. There's so many bands that sound like the other band, and it just kind of blurs together.
Well, I mean, mainstream music generally, and unfortunately, even mainstream hard rock and metal nowadays is really as cookie cutter as the rest in my mind.
Yeah.
And, everybody tries to grab for the brass ring or whatever it is. They want their piece of the pie, and that pie gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So everybody keeps trying to do the same thing because they see this guy getting a piece, so they want a piece, so they have to sound like that so they can get their piece. It's all bullshit, man. I mean, whatever your motivations are, if you want to be rich and famous and that's your motivation, then go do whatever the hell you're going to do. That's fine with me. But when it comes to making music, and if you're going to want to be an artist, and if you want to make something cool, then just do what you're going to do and let the trends and let the mainstream take care of itself, or just do it despite that stuff.
Exactly. So tell me about the process that you do write songs with, man. Do you guys get together and jam it all out, or you guys bring individual pieces in? What's the Gaggle COCKS musical theory?
Well, it changes depending on the situation. I mean, again, we're talking over a long span of time. Our first album was basically, written in the sweaty, crappy rehearsal studios in New York City. And I come with the main portion of the riffs and the general ideas. However, when it comes to arranging and, the other guys' parts, I let them take care of themselves. So we initially came together as a very collaborative thing. The newer album, because of the way things are, a lot of that stuff came from me specifically, where I just demoed the stuff at home, and I have a home studio, and a lot of those songs were demoed, 2, sometimes 3 times before we recorded them. And, it was not as, organic or as collaborative as I guess I would have initially liked, but, we were working with the situation that we had, and our drummer at the time lived in California, so, I mean, some of the drums were recorded out in L.A., some were recorded in New York. By that point, we had already basically had the essence of the band, so everybody was very comfortable and knew how to work within that framework. So it came out, in some ways, it came out even more organically as a result.
Nice, man. You guys are from New York City, right? Just so happens that my wife is from Brooklyn, so that was another key thing. I thought, this is cool. Back another New York band, and I can imagine as big as New York is, well, as concentrated as New York is, it's a a rough road to try and stand out amongst all the other bands there. What does Gaggle of COCKS do different, man?
Well, I think, New York comes with a very strict set of boundaries, whether it's the environment itself that influences the bands that are there, or certain bands just end up going to New York because they sound that way, or is it just because, all the bands swimming in the same water are eventually going to, drink each other's piss? I mean, I don't know, but I think I've tried to not pay attention to any of that. I have my, influences. I have my way of doing things, and sometimes that kind of fits, sometimes it doesn't. But I tell you what, the one thing, especially back when we were first starting out, the few years after September 11th, the scene in New York City was very much, kind of straight ahead rock and roll, kind of, very kind of reminiscent of almost the 80s LA era, where it was just like, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, basically, the way we felt after that whole thing happened was we were like, well, screw it, man. We can die any day now, so we're just going to go out and have a blast, and we certainly did. And so Gaggle of COCKS doesn't, on the surface, doesn't necessarily fit into that kind of idea, I guess, but, we would play with all these bands, and everybody was always, we were like the underground, while everyone was doing their good time rock and roll, they were always like, wow, Gaggle of COCKS, you got to see this, man, you can't believe this. So we were the guilty pleasure, I guess you could say.
Nice. I could see that, man. I could see that. It's, I put the record on, and, to be honest with you, not knowing what to expect, having, I listened to a couple songs, and then, the whole name thing, I got it. When I put it on, I got it. I was like, I understand. The quality of the record's good. It's good production quality. The songs are well written, and it's definitely an album that I would go back to and listen to again. So, I'm really glad that you guys reached out and came on my radar. So it works. Whatever you're doing, it works.
Oh, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the support and everything, man. I mean, nowadays you can't take anything for granted. So every little bit that anybody that comes into our little world and kind of digs what's going on, we really appreciate that very much.
Yeah, no worries. So let's talk about the live show Gaggle of COCKS puts on, man. Are you guys gonna hit the road with this new record? In fact, the new record's low class trendsetter. That alone, yeah. Man, that's a good name too. What are we looking at for touring for you guys?
Well, that's kind of up in the air at the moment. We're not, we're not spring chickens anymore, and we all have obligations, financial and family and otherwise. We did just do a couple of shows with Cycle of Pain and Blackwater Rising. We did a weekend where we did a Philly show and then a show in the city, and that worked out really well. So we're going to try and do some more stuff like that, probably weekender kind of stuff. We're in talks with some places right now in the city. To be honest, if anything, it will be regional, unless something comes along and or someone comes along with fat pockets that wants to help pave the way, so to speak. So we're kind of playing that by ear right now, and see how it goes. But like I said, those shows that we just did this past December went over great, and we had a lot of fun doing it. So we're definitely looking to do more of that.
That's great. That's funny you said that, because the guys in Blackwater Rising are our friends of mine. I've actually been in contact with those guys for several years. I just got to hang out with them on the Kill Devil Hill tour. And Cycle of Pain, I just did an interview with JD, and that's been a band that's near and dear to my heart too. So, I'm glad to add you into that roster.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was a lot of fun, and I've known the Blackwater Rising guys for a little while, so it was great to get to see them again. And it was the first time I met JD, and what a super cool dude. And those guys were really great. And we were just thrilled to be able to share the stage with them and hang out with them and get to know them. So, we have actually had contact with them since, and, we're on their radar, too, for possibly more shows in the future as well.
Nice. It would be a cool dream to see, you guys be able to tour the States. I know how logistics are, in this day and age, especially with the way the industry is, but, I'm glad you guys are out there doing what you do and bringing that live show and keeping that dirty rock and roll alive, man. That's very cool. So thank you.
Right on. Thanks, man.
So this will go out to 140 countries around the world. Several thousand people read and listen to this weekly. The floor is yours. Tell the world what you want to tell them.
Oh, now the pressure's on, man. I would say, much like you were just saying, whether the name draws you in or scares you away, check out Low Class Trendsetter. Check it out on the Facebook page, where we got it on Bandcamp, where you can listen to it for free. It's available through Slip Trick Records, where you can download the digital. We have CDs available through our Bandcamp page as well. It's gaggleatcocks.com or facebook.com/gaggleatcocks. But, check it out with an open mind and feel the rock and get down with it.
Very cool. I'm here. This is the Hellion from the Hellion Rocks. I'm here to say Gaggle COCKS CD will not disappoint you if you're a fan of dirty, nasty, straight-up rock and roll music with no pretentious overtones. Gaggle COCKS, definitely something I'm going to be listening to. Definitely right now is a contender for one of the best releases of 2014 that I've heard. It's a good record, man. And Pat, thank you for calling in to the Hellion Rocks, and we'll hopefully talk to you soon.
Right on, man. Thanks again. Really appreciate it, and keep it up, man. Keep digging on the underground music. We appreciate all the help.
Cool, man. We're out.